Officer Adam Witman had pulled over hundreds of cars in his career. A routine traffic stop, quick, simple, and forgettable. But not this one. The moment Naomi Carter rolled down her window, something felt off. Not just her tense posture or her careful movements. It was the tattoo peeking from under her sleeve. A symbol he had seen before, on missing officers, on buried case files, on secrets the department wanted erased. His gut told him to walk away. His instincts told him to dig deeper. Before he could ask a single question, Naomi made her decision. She ran. Now, in a high-speed chase through dark back roads, Adam isn't just after a fleeing suspect, he's chasing the truth. But the deeper he goes, the more the lines blur. Who is Naomi Carter, really? And why is his own department trying to stop him from finding out? Some secrets are meant to stay buried. But Adam just made sure this one won't. The night was quiet, the hum of Adam Witman's patrol car blending with the distant chirp of crickets. A dark SUV sped past his cruiser, the speedometer flashing 72 in a 65. Routine stop, nothing unusual. He flipped on the lights and pulled out onto the highway, trailing the vehicle for a moment before it finally eased onto the shoulder. Adam adjusted his radio, exhaling as he stepped out. Just another stop. He approached cautiously, his boots crunching on gravel. One hand rested near his holster, not out of fear, but habit. The department drilled it into them. Always be ready. The SUV's window rolled down, revealing a woman in her early 30s, her dark eyes scanning him carefully. She was calm, composed, too composed. License and registration, Adam said evenly. She moved slowly, her fingers precise, measured, like she'd practiced this before. Something about that unsettled him. She handed over the documents. Naomi Carter, local address, clean record. Do you know how fast you were going, Miss Carter? A little over, I think, she answered, her voice controlled. 72 in a 65, Adam confirmed, watching her reaction. No protest, no argument, just quiet acceptance. That's when he saw it. Her sleeve shifted slightly as she adjusted her grip on the wheel. Just for a second. But it was enough. A symbol. Circular, precise, and dangerously familiar. His breath hitched. His grip on her license tightened. It had been years since he'd last seen it. On abandoned lockers. On reports that vanished overnight. On officers who disappeared and were never spoken about again. The department had buried every mention of it. Buried them. And now it was here. On her. Adam forced himself to keep his expression neutral, but his pulse pounded in his ears. "Where'd you get that tattoo?" he asked, his voice carefully even. Naomi's fingers flexed against the steering wheel. "You wouldn't believe me if I told you." "Try me." A tense pause. Her eyes flicked toward his hand, the one resting near his radio. And then she moved. The tires screeched as she slammed her foot on the gas. Gravel spit from beneath the wheels as the SUV launched forward, rocketing onto the highway. Adam snapped into action, bolting back toward his cruiser. "Dispatch, I've got a runner. Black SUV, heading westbound on Route 17. He barely finished before throwing the vehicle into gear. Sirens blared, lights flashed, the chase had begun. Naomi Carter wasn't just a woman speeding on the highway. She was running from something. And Adam had a sinking feeling. This wasn't the first time someone with that symbol had tried to disappear. The night blurred past in streaks of flashing red and blue as Adam pushed his cruiser to its limits. Naomi's SUV sliced through the empty highway with impossible precision, never hesitating, never slowing, like she'd done this before. "Dispatch, I'm in pursuit, westbound on Route 17, Adam said into his radio, keeping one hand firm on the wheel. Static crackled back, then nothing. Frowning, he adjusted the dial. "Dispatch, do you copy?" Silence. That wasn't right. There were at least 2 other units on this route. Someone should have responded. Adam refocused, his grip tightening. He had no time to question it now. Naomi was still ahead, weaving through the highway, cutting across lanes with the precision of a professional driver. This wasn't panic. This was controlled. She suddenly swerved, cutting hard onto an unmarked road. a narrow, winding path that disappeared into the dense tree line. Adam hesitated. Just for a second. Then he turned the wheel, following her into the dark. The moment his tires hit the uneven road, his cruiser lurched violently. The asphalt was cracked, littered with debris. This wasn't a maintained road, it was abandoned. His headlights bounced, illuminating twisting paths and dense trees. Naomi's SUV maneuvered through it like she knew every turn. Adam gritted his teeth. "Where the hell are you leading me?" His instinct screamed at him. This wasn't right. He slammed his radio again. "Dispatch, I need immediate backup. Suspect has taken an unmarked road, possibly leading out of jurisdiction." Static. A chill ran down his spine. No signal, no response, no backup. He was alone. Up ahead, Naomi took another sharp turn, her taillights flickering between the trees before vanishing completely. Adam's foot pressed on the gas. He wouldn't lose her. The road narrowed, twisting like a snake, forcing him to slow down. His cruiser wasn't built for this terrain, but hers was. Then, his headlights caught something, a splintered wooden sign, half buried in overgrown weeds. He barely had time to read it before he passed. "Restricted zone. Keep out." Adam's pulse spiked. The road dipped suddenly, the terrain shifting into rough gravel. His tires skidded. He yanked the wheel, stabilizing the car just before hitting a large fallen branch. He slammed the brakes, but when he looked ahead, Naomi was gone. The SUV had vanished. No tire marks, no tracks, only the sound of the wind rustling through the trees. Adam exhaled, scanning the area. His gut twisted. This wasn't just a runaway suspect. This was something else. The last time someone with that symbol had vanished, they were never seen again. And now, he had driven straight into the same darkness. Adam's cruiser rolled to a stop, its headlights cutting through the dense fog. The outpost stood before him, an old structure, long forgotten, swallowed by the woods. Naomi's SUV was parked just outside, engine still warm. She was here. But she wasn't alone. The trees rustled with something more than wind. The air carried a presence, heavy, expectant, like someone was watching. Hand hovering near his holster, Adam stepped out, scanning the perimeter. The outpost was skeletal. Half-collapsed walls, rusted metal beams, a graveyard of forgotten history. No signs of movement, no footprints in the dirt. But Naomi was fast. She had disappeared once before. He wasn't about to let her do it again. Then, headlights. The trees beyond the outpost glowed with the slow, steady approach of multiple squad cars. Adam's pulse spiked. His backup? Number. They would have responded to his calls earlier. The first car pulled up, then another. 5 in total. Doors opened in perfect sync, and no one said a word. Adam knew these men. Patrol officers, detectives, some he'd worked with for years. But something was wrong. Their movements, too stiff, too synchronized, like they were following a script. Sergeant Miller stepped forward, expression blank, eyes unreadable. "Witman," Miller said, voice flat. "You shouldn't be here." Adam squared his stance. "Neither should you." Miller didn't flinch. "We'll take it from here." Adam's fingers twitched near his gun. "Where was that concern an hour ago? You ignored my calls." No response. A thin smirk ghosted Miller's lips, the first sign of anything human. "This is bigger than you," Miller said, stepping closer. "Bigger than her." The other officers tightened their stance. Adam wasn't stupid. They weren't here for an arrest. They were here for cleanup. Naomi wasn't just running from them. She was running from something she knew. Adam's jaw clenched. "You've done this before, haven't you?" Miller sighed, almost as if bored. "Don't make this difficult, Witman." A warning. A final chance. Adam took a slow step back, eyes darting toward Naomi's SUV. She wasn't in it. She was watching, waiting. The forest behind the outpost suddenly felt endless. More shadows than trees. He wasn't sure what terrified him more, the silence, or the fact that he was suddenly part of it. His hand twitched. The weight of his sidearm felt heavier than ever. He had a choice. Stand down. Walk away. Forget. Or go after Naomi and find out why they wanted her gone. The air tensed. No one moved. Then, in the smallest voice, a whisper against the wind. Run. It wasn't his voice. It wasn't Miller's. Adam turned, just in time to see Naomi slip into the shadows. Miller sighed. Wrong choice. And the guns came up. The night had never felt so still. Adam stood frozen, surrounded. 5 officers. Silent. Unmoving. Their squad cars cast long shadows across the dirt, their headlights burning into him like a silent warning. Miller took a slow step forward. You're in over your head, Witman. Then, a whisper. You were supposed to be one of them. Adam barely had time to process the words before Naomi emerged from the shadows. She was just a few feet away, partially concealed by the ruined outpost. Eyes locked onto his. His heart pounded. What did you just say? Her gaze flickered past him, to the officers tightening their stance. Then back to him. You were supposed to disappear years ago, just like the others. A chill slid down Adam's spine. That wasn't possible. He had been a rookie back then. Young, green. He remembered the rumors, the officers who'd vanished without a trace. Men with that symbol. His mind flashed to files that didn't exist, names erased from records, quiet funerals without bodies. Miller exhaled, rubbing his jaw. Carter, you just don't know when to quit. His tone was casual, but his fingers curled slightly. A signal. The other officers stepped forward, closing in. Naomi didn't flinch. He deserves to know. Adam's breathing slowed. Every part of him screamed that this was wrong. That this wasn't just a fugitive takedown. This was an execution. Miller shook his head. Last chance, Witman. The words were too easy, too rehearsed. Turn her in. Walk away. Forget. Forget. The same word used in every missing persons report that never got filed. Forget. The same word that came up when an officer's locker was emptied overnight. Forget. And suddenly, Adam understood. This wasn't about Naomi. This was about him. He was never supposed to be here, because they never meant for him to survive long enough to question anything. His fingers brushed against his holster. He had been trained for this moment, to follow orders, to obey. Naomi's voice was low, firm. Don't let them erase you too. Adam's pulse slowed. His decision was already made. He pulled his gun, but not on Naomi, on his own. Miller's expression finally cracked, a flicker of real surprise. Wrong move. The squad's hands flew to their weapons. The knight stood on a knife's edge, one breath away from gunfire. Adam didn't lower his aim. Neither did they. Naomi's next words were barely audible. Run. And Adam ran. The knight was alive with pursuit. Adam's lungs burned as he sprinted through the woods, Naomi just ahead of him. The distant roar of squad cars and the crunch of boots on gravel told him one thing. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. Branches snapped under his feet as he pushed forward, his heartbeat hammering against his ribs. He wasn't the hunter anymore. He was the hunted. Naomi suddenly veered left, ducking behind a fallen tree. Adam followed, dropping low just as flashlights cut through the darkness behind them. Fan out, a voice ordered. Miller's. Adam clenched his jaw. He had trusted these men, called them his brothers. Now, they wanted him dead. Naomi grabbed his sleeve, pulling him deeper into the undergrowth. This way. They moved in silence, weaving through the trees until they reached the edge of the forest. Beyond it, a cracked, forgotten backroad. Naomi wasted no time. She sprinted toward a rusted pickup truck parked under a tangle of branches. Get in. Adam hesitated only for a second before climbing into the passenger seat. The engine roared to life. Then, headlights flared behind them. Squad cars. Hold on, Naomi muttered. The tires screamed against the pavement as she slammed the accelerator. The truck fishtailed before launching forward, dust and leaves swirling in their wake. Adam gripped the dashboard as gunfire cracked behind them. Bullets splintered the trees, one shattering the side mirror. They're shooting at us? he barked. "Welcome to my life," Naomi muttered. The squad cars weren't slowing down. If anything, they were gaining. "There's no way out," Adam gritted, scanning the road ahead. "Not unless we make one." Naomi yanked the wheel, sending them careening down a steep dirt path. Adam's stomach lurched. The truck bucked and jolted as it tore through uneven terrain. Mud sprayed, gravel flew. Behind them, sirens wailed, but the squad cars hesitated at the drop. That hesitation was all they needed. Naomi pressed the gas harder. "We have to keep moving. They won't stop." Adam exhaled sharply. "You need to start talking. Now." Naomi didn't look at him. "What do you want to know?" "Everything." She was silent for a moment, staring at the road like she was watching ghosts. Then finally, she said it. "That symbol on my arm?" She took a shaky breath. "It's not a gang mark. It's a death sentence." Adam's blood ran cold. She pulled back her sleeve, revealing the inked emblem. "Every officer who had this? They're gone. Erased. And now they want to erase me, too." Adam's mind raced. "Who gave it to you?" Naomi's fingers tightened around the wheel. Not who. What? Adam didn't understand. Not yet. But one thing was certain. The people chasing them weren't just officers. They were executioners. The old truck roared down the dirt road, its tires spitting gravel as Naomi pushed it harder. The squad car behind them wasn't backing off. If anything, it was gaining, fast. Adam checked the side mirror. Miller was behind the wheel, his expression unreadable, his grip steady. He wasn't here to make an arrest. He was here to finish the job. "They're not stopping," Adam muttered. "Neither are we." Naomi's hands were tight on the wheel, her jaw clenched. "Hold on." The road twisted sharply ahead, sloping downward toward a deep ravine. The only way across was a narrow wooden bridge. Adam's stomach dropped. "That doesn't look stable." "It's not," Naomi said flatly. The headlights behind them flared brighter. Miller was closing in. No time to think. Naomi gunned the engine. The truck lurched forward, barreling toward the bridge as Adam braced himself. The planks creaked beneath them, the whole structure groaning under the weight of the speeding truck. They were halfway across when a new set of headlights appeared on the other side. Another squad car. Adam's breath caught. "We're trapped." Naomi didn't slow. The second car tried to block their exit, but she yanked the wheel, clipping its side and sending it spinning. The squad car slammed into the guardrail, skidding sideways, the tires screeching in protest. Then, the bridge shuddered. The old beams splintered beneath the weight of both vehicles. Adam barely had time to shout before the entire structure collapsed behind them. Miller's car was still on it. The last thing Adam saw was his former squad plunging into the ravine below. The sound of metal crunching against rock echoed through the night. Naomi never looked back. The moment their wheels hit solid ground, she kept driving, pushing forward as if the road itself was on fire. Adam sat motionless, his fingers still curled around the seat. They had survived. For now. Naomi finally exhaled. "We bought time." Adam stared out the window, his pulse still pounding. "Yeah, but not much. Because whoever was behind this, they wouldn't stop. Not until both of them were erased." The road stretched endlessly behind them, swallowed by the night. The bridge had collapsed. Their pursuers were gone, for now. But Adam knew better. This wasn't over. Naomi drove in silence, her hands steady on the wheel, eyes locked on the road. There was no turning back now. Finally she slowed, veering onto a barely visible dirt path. Overgrown branches scraped against the truck as they descended into the darkness. "Where are we going?" Adam asked. Naomi's voice was quiet. "Somewhere they never wanted you to see." The truck rolled to a stop in front of what looked like an abandoned bunker, half buried in the earth. Rusted metal doors, reinforced, a place that had been built to keep people out, or keep something inside. Naomi climbed out first, leading him toward the entrance. She keyed in a code on an old panel. A deep mechanical click echoed in the night. The doors groaned as they swung open. Adam hesitated. A chill ran through him. Something more than just the cold night air. This place wasn't just hidden, it was erased. Inside, dim overhead lights flickered on, revealing rows of metal filing cabinets, dusty desks, and stacks of documents covered in time's fingerprints. "This is where the names go when they disappear," Naomi said. She walked over to a cabinet, yanked open a drawer, and pulled out a thick file. She handed it to Adam. He stared down at it. His breath caught. It was a personnel file, a name he hadn't heard in years. Detective Marcus Reed. Adam swallowed hard. Reed had been his mentor, his training officer, until one day, he was gone. No explanation, no funeral, just gone. He flipped through the file, his eyes scanning the pages. Reports, internal memos, all stamped with the same word: terminated. Except this wasn't a standard termination. It was an erasure. Page after page revealed dozens of officers just like Reed. Good men, honest men, men who had asked too many questions. Adam's grip tightened. This is a kill list. Naomi nodded. And the symbol? She rolled up her sleeve, exposing the inked mark on her arm. This is their warning. If you wear it, you're marked. It means you saw something you weren't supposed to. And when that happens, you disappear. The room felt smaller, like the walls were pressing in. Adam had spent years thinking his department was flawed, corrupt in places. But this wasn't just corruption. This was execution. A secret force, operating inside the system, removing anyone who got too close. And now, he was on their list. He let out a slow breath. How do we stop this? Naomi gave him a hard look. We don't run anymore. Adam met her gaze. No more running, no more hiding. They had one option left: fight back, or become the next names on the list.